you know the secrets behind cutting and chopping?
I don't, but I feel like I'm about to because Chef Bill is here from chefbill.com, and you're going to tell us the secrets, I hope?
I am. I'm going to share all the secrets so they'll no longer be secrets.
It's an expose on cutting and chopping.
That's
Yes.
right.
Do you want to start with potatoes?
Yeah, let's start with potatoes because people cut them a lot, and you might say, well, gee, why should there be a secret to cutting potatoes? And what the secret is a lot of time you're going to want uniform sizes. And why do you want a uniform size of vegetables? So they'll cook at the same time. Is it the most crucial thing in the world? No, and they don't have to be exact. You don't have to break out a ruler to make sure everything's exact.
Good.
But you want kind of the same
Uniform,
size thing.
right.
Exactly, it's
you
important.
Want one crunchy and one soft.
That's exactly it. And so there's so many different things you can do with potatoes. One of my favorites is doing a classic potato gratin, which is when you've got this little scalloped potatoes. And I don't like to use a mandolin all the time. That's the big kind of guillotine kind of thing you can take your fingers off with.
Yeah,
so
scary.
just use the knife. Now here's the key thing about any of these cutting and choppings, and that is how you hold the knife. And as I've mentioned a couple times before, a lot of people hold it like this and they kick their knuckles.
You can't just hold it at the edge.
And you can't hold it like that because you just want the lateral control. So between your thumb and forefinger, grip the knife like that, and then you can just start slicing up and down. Now yes,
when you're chopping, do you suggest a longer knife because you have a little bit more surface?
I really do. And a 10-inch knife, a lot of people like an 8-inch chef's knife, but they're not as efficient, and they're not, you have to actually move your arm up a little bit more. And so with this, you can lift higher without the same, without as much effort, and you get more chopping out of it. And so the other hand is just as important. A lot of times you kind of hold your fingers like that. That's how you lose fingertips. That would ruin dinner.
Yes.
So what I like to do is hold your hands like this, and then, so if you're doing a scalloped potato, almost use your hand here as a guide, the fingers, and you get this nice even cut. And see how I'm just slicing along like that, and you get them exactly as you want them. Now, another way of doing it, now say that's a scalloped potato. Say you're just making roasting potatoes in the oven. You still want to cut it in half because otherwise, if you're trying to do things with an odd size like that, you're not going to have a solid surface. So always cut your potato in half to begin with. So it's nice and flat and you can cut it any way you need to cut it.
Okay.
So this way, you can go with bigger chunks. Or if you're just boiling up potatoes, again, just cut it in half because my grandmother always said, never say no to a potato. And next thing you know, you've got larger sizes, any size.
If you are boiling, should you peel? I cannot stand peeling potatoes. I know it's probably not the worst thing in the world, but I just don't like it. Can you boil them with the skin on them?
That's such a great question. The answer is yes. And I'll tell you, my preference is not to peel potatoes. There's a lot of nutrients in the skin. It's fine. Unlike cooking and making say an apple pie, you get all the skin in your teeth. This is fine, and it just gives you a nice texture. It's good flavor. I prefer to do it. You do want to make sure you wash the potatoes first, but that's the only thing. That's the only difference. Otherwise, I always leave the skin on.
Chef Bill, if you're looking to save time, does it matter if you make the potatoes smaller and then will they cook faster once boiled?
Yes, that's a great question because that's absolutely true. Because if you're going to, say you just want to boil potato and you throw in the whole potato, it's going to take a long time for the heat to get through, even if you cut it in half. The smaller the pieces you have, the faster they're going to cook. So if you're going to boil a potato, say you just throw this in water, that could take you 15 minutes or more. This will take you, once the water boils, 3 minutes.
So the smaller the better.
Smaller the better, and that's going to save you time, and very little more effort goes into it. So it's a great way to do it. And that's actually a key thing with no matter what kind of food you're cooking. If it's smaller, it's going to cook faster. And so if the size does not matter in the end result, definitely cut it smaller.
If you're going to mash them or something like that,
exactly.
So many potato secrets.
Oh, there are, and these are just potatoes. But the thing is, so many of these rules apply to so many other foods. For instance, you've got a carrot. And a lot of people, do you know how to peel a carrot? Have we had this conversation?
I always buy them pre-peeled.
You can buy pre-peeled carrots?
I'm just shocked.
Where are you shopping? They sell those?
Baby carrots.
The little ones,
carrots.
yes, they always are.
Yeah, I don't have to peel them.
But see, a lot of people go one way or go another way. Well, with carrots, just leave the peeler on the board and just, just keep the peeler right on the carrot, and it's fast and easy.
Wow.
So, yes, that's the best thing in the history of the world. But now, there are a couple different things that are important when you're cutting a carrot. I mean, it's one thing just to do slices, just like
a chicken soup slice.
Exactly. But say you're doing, and this is what a lot of people don't realize, say you're doing you want a really fine dice, you want a really great looking little piece of carrot. Now, here's what you want to do. You want to cut off all of the ends, all the sides rather, and you're going to make a perfect rectangle.
We're gonna make little squares.
You're going to make little squares.
It's like you're making a coleslaw cut.
Yes.
Eventually.
Well, you can do that way, yes. So what? Actually, I prefer to grate my carrots for coleslaws, but yes. But see, you're cutting it down this way, and you're going to have the exact same size. See, they're all about the same thickness, and so you don't want it too high because you still want to have control over it.
Wow.
And now I'm going to do it this side too.
Little chopsticks.
Yeah. Now you can have little matchsticks, or
Voila.
and voila. Now, do you
Look
need?
at that.
The only downside of this is you're not going to have. You have a little leftover, which is great for munching.
I was gonna say, put that in some hummus and you're golden.
Exactly, golden hummus.
Golden hummus. Well, now that we've got our carrots and our potatoes chopped, we're gonna come back. We have a lot more chopping to cover.
So many great things to cut.
This whole entire bowl, plus this nice loaf of bread.
A nice
we'll be back
baguette.
to learn even more chef secrets when it comes to cutting and chopping. Don't go anywhere. Back with personal chef Bill Collins from chefbill.com, also author of the book Knife Skills, and you're going to show us exactly how to put those knives to work, right?
Absolutely, because talk about just some basic cutting and chopping that a lot of people don't really know about because, well, as I like to say, if nobody shows you, how are you going to know?
You're never going to know.
And I'm going to talk about two things about onions. One of them is generally how to peel an onion. And what I like to do is take the end off with a little stuff growing in the middle there, no big deal. But I like to bring a paring knife down the side and really just pull the skin down this way.
Oh.
And this way...
Like you're peeling a banana almost.
Exactly.
Every time I peel an onion, it's like we got in a fight.
Well,
Just rip it apart.
well, you can do that too, but this way it all comes off and
I like your way better.
well, thank you. And actually, usually I cut the end off first, but due to the excitement of television, I forgot to do that. But
So
it comes right
exciting.
up. It is. But now the next thing is there's so many different ways to cut it. Now, again, you want to keep the surface, keep it flat on the surface. And let me also show you one other thing. Is underneath this cutting board, I also put some paper towel, damp cloth, damp paper towel, and that keeps the board from sliding around because you can do everything you can to make the food easier to cut. But if the surface is moving, there go your fingers.
Right.
So say you want just some basic slices, and this is actually my favorite knife for this, is once you cut it in half like that.
And this is the same principle now as the potato that we showed you earlier.
Exactly, and you've got the flat surface, and you've got all of these nice little cut up half onions. Or, again, if you just want some larger cuts, larger dice, just cut down half onion that way, cut one way, turn it 90 degrees.
Aha.
There it is.
And you've got all your chunks. Now, here's another little known fact. Say you want all these separate little rings to go into your skillet, but you want them all broken up. You don't have to separate them. Once they start to take on a little bit of heat, they'll just break apart. So you don't have to sit there and break up onions. It'll do it on its own, whether it's sliced, whether it's diced.
So don't waste your time doing that.
Exactly. Don't want to do that at all.
Okay.
So now I'm just going to take some of these off the board here. I'm going to show you another way to cut. And this is really a classic way of getting small dice. These were larger dices and cubes. Now, what you want to do is you want to leave the root end of the onion intact. You don't want to
Interesting.
take it off. And I just want to take off one more little bit of skin here. Okay, two more little bits of skin. And you want to cut it in half right down through the root edge. And see, now that's still attached there. You want to very carefully with your hand holding the top. You don't want to force it. You don't want to force the knife, but you want to cut slowly, slowly in towards the root end. So now what you're going to do is make these same slices down similar to what we did before.
And that root being there is holding it all together.
The
for
root,
you.
exactly, because otherwise it would just fall apart. And so now,
Oh, yeah. That's perfect.
and so you've got all these small dices for whatever you need them for.
That's your
So
omelet cut.
impressed.
That's exactly it. And you can throw that in salsa, an omelet cut if you don't. And plus, as we were saying earlier, the smaller the food, the quicker it's going to cook.
And you can also freeze it once you chop it up like that.
You
too.
really can, yep. And it's a great way if you have a little left over or if you want to use it later. Refrigerator or freeze it.
Now we only have about a minute or so left, but can we do the tomato? Because this one kills me. I don't know how to cut tomatoes well at all.
We can. I'm going to show you two things. If you can give me both tomatoes. First,
Okay.
with my handy dandy little tomato shark, I'm going to take the root end out.
Oh.
And so this is one of the great one-use tools in the world. So now, the reason I want to emphasize tomatoes is you can do big chunks, small chunks, but how do you do that? For instance, if you're making salsa, you can go both sizes. I like to make some slices. Make small slices. But now here's the thing. You want to take your time and just take maybe a few pieces at a time. You don't want to try and do them all at once.
There it is.
And there you go, you've got all of these smaller pieces. Now, say you want a bigger, chunkier salsa. Just make bigger slices.
A little bit thicker.
A little bit thicker. But now here's the thing. Just a couple of brief cuts, and you've got, look at the difference in the size of these. You've got the smaller cut and the larger cut. It's really a matter of what you're doing and how you want the difference to be. Now, if you're making a tomato sauce, you don't, and I mentioned earlier, you want to cut things up smaller, it'll cook down just as quickly because there's so much liquid. You don't have to really finely chop them if you're in a hurry.
Right.
But that's a really big difference right there. And just think about where you're going and what you want, how you want to get there. Making salsa, making larger salsa, cutting up onion, what do you want to have? And as long as you've got a sharp knife and a non-moving cutting board, you're good to go.
You're in good shape. Now, really quickly, we're out of time, but how do you chop up this? I would imagine you just take your serrated knife and you just cut slices, right?
Absolutely, yes. But now, a couple of things. Number one, I like to do slices at an angle like that, on the bias as we call it, for a few reasons. Number one, if you're making little sandwiches, you've got a good sized piece instead of just a smaller half sandwich.
Surface area.
Or if you're doing little appetizers that you want to smear on top, cut it in half. So this is a very versatile cut to do. Or if you're going to be making, I'm just going to even this off, if you're going to be making croutons, what you want to do is get a manageable size, and again, a flat surface on the bottom, cut down that way, cut down this way, and still keep your fingers. This is a very fresh loaf. It's easier with a loaf that's a little older.
Yeah.
And then just cut along that way. And next thing you know, you've got these pieces for your croutons, any size you want.
Pop them in the oven and you're good to eat.
And you're good to go. A little olive oil, garlic, salt and pepper, you're good to go. One other rule of thumb, if you're trying to figure out how many slices of you want for your sandwiches, you can get 40 slices out of a French bread.
Wow, 40. That's good for if you're going to make an appetizer or something. You know.
And you'll never forget that number now.
40 slices in French bread. See, these are the secrets we get, and if you want even more secrets,
Thank you.
Thank
tune
you.
in next week, because Chef Bill's going to be here. And for a copy of this recipe and all these cutting tips, because it's not really a recipe today, just go to mymousemeal.com.